Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance to those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one of the tools I use to accomplish my mission. Generally, when the timer hits 9 minutes and 59 seconds on this recording, you'll have a fully developed life lesson that you can take with you and begin to implement immediately. And if this week's lesson has a ring of familiar, then it's probably a reinforcement of a life change you've already started to implement. This podcast falls under the umbrella of my greater personal development efforts, all under the Your Better You brand. For more information on accountability coaching or to gain access to tools, tricks, and life hacks, visit yourbetteryou.info. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. Now, here is this week's life lesson. This episode of the podcast is slated to come out about a week shy, a couple days shy of my birthday. I'll be 44 this year, so thank you for that. But as I tend to do towards my birthdays, I tend to rush some sort of project to celebrate for it because, I don't know, procrastination, denial, not quite sure why it is, but I always want to produce something to celebrate, or at least have done the last couple of years, and gets to the very last minute where I basically get it done. Next year, I plan a much grander celebration with a much grander book, which I've been working on for months already. The plan to actually have it done and nice looking in perfect time for people to get it for my birthday. That's where the real lesson lies, in getting things done at the level that you can. Because you're going to find as soon as you have an idea that you want to go all the way to Emmy Award winning levels, you've got to get it off the ground first, and it's going to be not quite so great as you get off the ground. Subpar may be actually being nice about it. This really came up as I was going through the motions. I'll say going through the motions because it is sort of going through the actual steps and motions of getting the book published with a newer company that I'm using, a newer program to get it done. From there, I started looking at my past couple of books that I was doing when I was, quote unquote, on a roll and in motion and moving towards things before I hit a big roadblock and had to stop a lot of my work. What I found out, to sheer horror, if you will, is that the quality had gotten worse from the start. I was in such a rush and such a hurried nature when I was getting out my last book that I basically clicked the button, sent it off, and didn't really take a look at how it actually looked in different forms, in all forms. I had a quick review and just said, yeah, sure, let's do this, and was planning on having the next thing be a little bit better. As I've often said with books in particular and many other projects, the first ones aren't very good. My books, I am famous for saying, aren't very good books, but I'm working towards making better ones. My last book wasn't a very good book because the content-wise, it wasn't very deep, but it went along with the theme of something I was doing, and it was content-wise at that point not too bad. It was showing a evolution in the growth of the actual content, growth in the actual work going into it, the thought and processes into the writing of the words, but the processing of the actual book, actually laying it out, didn't translate well at all. It translated worse than other editions. I didn't actually realize that because you had to go deeper into the book to see where things stopped lining up. I basically put the book out there, waved my hands of it, said good luck to you, and let it be on its own, and wondered why it didn't do as well as the other ones. People started to see that things weren't working out, and they just backed away from it. Not that that wasn't expected. It was not me. I'm not a big time bestseller anyway, but I thought a little extra traction to make things work would help along with my progress and help my momentum. It seems like all my momentum was basically about to end pretty soon after I published that book, and the bad edition of that book may just be foreshadowing for what was about to come that I just couldn't see at the time. But what I did see at the time was the fact that I was having a hard time getting things done, getting things moving, getting the work in. And I still published something anyway. It was not great. In fact, it was worse than the was not great level I expected it to be, because it wasn't supposed to be grand. It was just supposed to be done and complete. It was done, It was kind of complete, but just was done in a very haphazardly manner, and the actual product was a true hot mess. But that is not the problem. The hot mess is a problem, but that is not a problem in itself when the goal was made, something was done, something was shipped, and lessons were learned from shipping it then. And 3 years out, lessons are learned from actually looking at the product. More lessons are being learned, if you will. The big lesson that actually is being taught today is not even on proofreading your stuff, but it's on putting out your stuff even if you don't have a chance to proofread it. Now, bear with me. You don't want to put out something that's just straight garbage, but you do want to put out something to put something out. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles and all the fancy equipment to make something happen. You just have to make something happen, make something come out with the best you can, literally the best you can for right now, and know it can get better and work to get better, and make sure that you're asking people for help to improve what you're doing, to make it get better. Most of your first attempts are horrible. At this very moment, I'm trying to break into video stuff because I've finally just given up and realized that I have to do more video things to be an active player in the social media, interactive new media world. I have to do video stuff. I have to put my face on camera and do visuals that take more time, more effort, and in some cases, I believe, make it harder to tell the story because you have to do it in two mediums and balance the words, which I've mastered, and the voice, which I'm pretty good at, with alongside a visual that doesn't always compare. Mostly, I don't like the way I look on camera. I'm not very good at keeping my eyes focused on the camera, and adding visuals and adding pieces, while I do enjoy making the graphics, takes a lot of time and slows the processes down tremendously. So my current video production ain't so great. I have to deal with multiple cameras. You want to buy new stuff, but it's not making any profit right now, so you can't just buy new stuff. I'm playing around with different microphones and different systems and different audiences and it's a whole lot of different going on right now, and a lot of it isn't clicking. A lot of it is learning just how bad it is so that it can be better. I am committed to doing more of this, so I have to do more of it. I have to do more trial and error and playing around. And to be honest, my time frame for doing this, my windows of opportunity, very slim right now, especially as I'm trying to write a book 2 weeks out before my birthday. It's not going to be a grand, massive book, but it's a book for promotion, for a celebration, and all those things out. And it has to be decent enough to be worth doing. So I don't fret it too much, but I take it as a lesson learned. Quality makes a difference, and the quality you're able to provide to a product makes a big difference to distinguish it from other products. Some people will buy your product, which has less value, if you will. The quality seems better. Sometimes it's the packaging that will override common sense in what's good or what's bad for something. Sometimes you can go past the packaging and go to the inside and find out that what's inside, the ingredients, the contents, the knowledge are about the same, maybe even better in that lower quality package. But you've got to produce that thing to the best of your ability. It cannot have the excuse of, I don't have enough to produce it when you know it must be produced. You can get better. You can have a flop and then you can rebound from that flop. That makes that story much, much, much more grander when you tell it if you had to rebound from a bad situation to a good situation. If you have some knowledge, find a way to put it into some package and publish it. If you've been publishing already and your efforts aren't all that good looking, put a little spit and polish and work on it piece by piece, day by day. Settle for that 1 to 5% improvement each time out and just let that compound itself and try to do as quickly as possible to get better quicker if you must. Don't worry about your first efforts being not so great because they won't be so great. Worry about your next efforts getting better and better until you get to something that may not quite be perfection, but is so good enough that people will want it and not even care. Thank you for joining us today for the podcast. If you follow the longer history of the podcast, its original name, mission, and original life as a 10-minute life coach, then you know that this thing didn't start off as great as it is now, or at least not where it's sounding nowhere near as it does sound now. Maybe you thought the old format, the very old format, was greater. I'm not sure. It was a task, and very hard to get done. And we're glad that we were able to get through the 150 episodes of that one and then get through the buffer episodes that turned into the relaunch to this one right here. Nowhere near 150 on this one, but we do have a very close sister partnership with my other podcast. So it can be a sister partnership with Your Better You, or Steps to Your Better You, which is around 122 or so as this gets released, and we'll hit 125 within the next couple of weeks. I actually recorded all the way up to 125 so I can back away and have a little less stress on that one for the milestone. But the point of today's lesson, of course, is to just do the best you can as you can. Don't worry so much about it being bad, because it's probably going to not be so great. And pledge to get better and actually live up to your pledge. A lot of things we are doing now with the rebranding and relaunching of a lot of things and combining things that were its own separate brands has been a bit of a struggle, but we always give you the sort of pre-apology of it's not perfect yet, but we're getting there. And right now we're working very hard to get back to some semblance of normalcy because it helps get things done. We finally got a consolidated email address for the properties that are Your Better You. It's not the best, but it's going to work for right now. And it is yourbetteryouinfo@gmail.com. yourbetteryouinfo@gmail.com. For all inquiries you want to email directly to this show, the other show, or anything about Your Better You and its coaching, you can send an email directly to yourbetteryouinfo@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Also, the main website, of course, is yourbetteryou.info, where you can find information about this podcast, Steps to Your Better You, that podcast, other things that come through that brand, and more specifically, the coaching that we're doing that's linked to that website, yourbetteryou.info. That simple, that easy. Not much selling to do this week. We're just going to give you those things that we're pretty proud of the fact that we actually got those things accomplished this week and mosey on along to the next step. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. As we said all the way back 8 years ago with the beginning of what this is now, this isn't done without you. This can't be done in a vacuum. Without people to talk to and people to motivate, to inspire, and help them get better, there's no reason to talk about getting better. So thank you for all the kind responses, and hopefully those folks who have been kindly responding will find a way to move to the new digs. It'll help out a lot. In the meantime, next week, another great episode. I'm not even going to do the front thing. I'm just going to say we put out great stuff. So this will be a great episode coming out next week from the 10-minute life lesson from yourbetteryou.info.